What happens when one of Hollywood's most respected actors sits down for what should be a simple interview and instead faces a host who seems determined to tear him down? It only took 38 seconds of disrespect before Kevin Costner had enough and did something that shocked everyone watching. The studio lights were bright that afternoon. Kevin Costner walked onto the set with a smile, waving to the audience. He looked relaxed in his dark jacket, ready to talk about his latest project. The audience clapped and cheered. Kelly Clarkson sat across from him, smiling that big smile she always has. Everything seemed normal. Everything seemed fine. But it wasn't going to stay that way. They started talking about his new show, Horizon. Kevin leaned forward, excited to share his passion project. He had spent years working on this. Years of his life poured into creating something meaningful. He started explaining the story, the characters, the Western landscape he loved so much. Kelly cut him off. "So, you made another Western," she said, her voice flat. "Haven't we seen this before?" Kevin paused. He kept his smile, but something changed in his eyes. "Well, actually, this one is different because it explores." "Different how?" Kelly interrupted again. "Isn't it just cowboys and horses? I mean, how many times can you do the same thing?" The audience went quiet. You could feel the tension starting to build. Kevin took a breath, clearly trying to stay professional. "Every story is unique," he said calmly. "This one focuses on families trying to survive, trying to build something in impossible conditions. It's about, but who even watches Westerns anymore?" Kelly said, laughing a little. "Isn't that kind of an old person thing?" Kevin's jaw tightened. He nodded slowly. "Westerns are timeless. They tell stories about character, about—" "Come on, Kevin," Kelly said, leaning back in her chair like she owned the place. "Be honest with me. Are you just making these because you can't get other roles anymore?" The audience gasped. Actually gasped. You could hear it throughout the studio. Kevin sat back, his face showing shock. Complete shock. "Excuse me?" he said quietly. "I'm just saying," Kelly continued, waving her hand around. "You used to be in big movies. Dances with Wolves, The Bodyguard, all those huge films. Now you're making these little Western shows that nobody really talks about. It feels like maybe you're past your prime." The silence in that studio was deafening. Kevin stared at her. He wasn't smiling anymore. The audience wasn't making a sound. Even the crew members looked uncomfortable. "Past my prime," Kevin repeated, his voice steady, but you could hear the anger underneath. "That's an interesting way to describe someone's work." "Well, you know what I mean," Kelly said, still smiling, like this was all just fun banter. "You're not exactly getting Oscar buzz these days." Kevin leaned forward. "Kelly, I've been in this industry for over 40 years. I've directed, I've produced, I've won Academy Awards, and I choose to make projects that mean something to me, not projects that chase awards or trends." Sure, Kelly said dismissively. "But let's talk about something people actually care about. Your personal life. All those divorces. That must be tough, right? Do you think your failed relationships affect your ability to tell love stories on screen?" The audience let out another gasp, this time louder. Kevin's face went red. Not just a little red, deep red. His hands gripped the armrest of his chair. "That is completely out of line," he said, his voice harder now. Kelly shrugged. "I'm just asking what people want to know. You're a public figure. Your personal life is—" "My personal life is my personal life," Kevin said firmly. "And it has nothing to do with my work. Nothing." "Come on, don't be so sensitive," Kelly said, laughing again. "I'm just having a conversation. You knew what you were signing up for when you came on a talk show." Kevin looked at her for a long moment. "A conversation involves respect. This is not that." "Oh, please," Kelly said, rolling her eyes. "You Hollywood types are all the same. You want everyone to worship you, but the moment someone asks real questions, you get all offended." "Real questions?" Kevin said, his voice rising slightly. "You just insulted my career and brought up my private life in the most disrespectful way possible. Those aren't real questions. That's just being cruel." Kelly sat up straighter. "Cruel? I'm being honest. Maybe that's something you're not used to. Maybe everyone around you just tells you what you want to hear." "You don't know anything about me," Kevin said. "You don't know what I've been through or what drives me or why I make the choices I make. I know that you're sitting here getting defensive instead of just having fun with this." Kelly shot back. "It's supposed to be entertainment, Kevin. Lighten up." "Entertainment isn't supposed to come at someone else's expense," Kevin said. "You can be funny without being mean. You can ask tough questions without being disrespectful." Kelly laughed, but it wasn't a friendly laugh. Wow, okay. So now I'm the bad guy because I'm not fawning all over you? You're the bad guy because you invited me here under the pretense of a professional interview and instead decided to attack me? Kevin said. His voice was shaking now, not from fear, but from contained anger. The audience was completely silent. Some people looked shocked, others looked uncomfortable, a few were shaking their heads. Attack you? Kelly said. Oh, come on. You're being dramatic. I asked a few questions and you're acting like I committed a crime. You belittled my work, Kevin said, counting on his fingers. You suggested I'm washed up. You brought up my personal relationships in a mocking way. And now you're gaslighting me by pretending none of that was inappropriate. Gaslighting? Kelly said, laughing louder now. Now you're using therapy words? This is ridiculous. Kevin stood up. Just stood right up from his chair, the audience murmured. Kelly's smile finally faded a little. Where are you going? She asked. I'm leaving, Kevin said simply. He started taking off his microphone. You can't just leave, Kelly said. We're in the middle of an interview. No, Kevin said, pulling the mic pack from his belt. You ended the interview when you decided to be hostile instead of professional. Sit down, Kelly said, and her voice had an edge to it now. You're being childish. Childish? Kevin said, turning to face her fully. What's childish is inviting someone onto your show and then spending the entire time trying to tear them down. What's childish is thinking you can treat people however you want because you have a microphone and a camera. What's childish is not understanding basic human decency. Kelly's face flushed. I have millions of viewers. People love my show. Maybe the problem is you. Maybe the problem is that you've forgotten how to treat guests with respect, Kevin said. Maybe the problem is that you think being mean is the same thing as being interesting. Maybe the problem is that you're more interested in viral moments than actual conversation. You're really going to walk off my show? Kelly said, standing up now too. Do you know what that's going to look like? I don't care what it looks like, Kevin said. I care about my self-respect, and I'm not going to sit here and let you insult me for entertainment. Fine, Kelly said, crossing her arms. Go ahead, walk off. Show everyone how you can't handle a little heat. Kevin shook his head. This isn't heat. Heat would be tough questions about my work, about my choices, about the industry. This is just cruelty dressed up as journalism. He set the microphone down on his chair. The audience was absolutely frozen. You could have heard a pin drop in that studio. Kevin looked out at them, gave a small nod, then looked back at Kelly. You know what the sad part is? He said quietly. You're talented. You have a voice people love. You could use this platform to do something meaningful, but instead, you chose to do this. Kelly opened her mouth to respond, but nothing came out. For the first time since the interview started, she seemed at a loss for words. Kevin turned and started walking toward the exit. His footsteps echoed in the silent studio. Kelly just stood there, watching him go, her face a mixture of anger and something else. Maybe embarrassment, maybe shock. Kevin, she called out. Kevin, come back. Let's start over. He didn't turn around, didn't even slow down. He just kept walking. I'm serious, Kelly said, her voice higher now. Come on, don't be like this. Kevin reached the edge of the stage. One of the producers stepped forward, trying to say something to him, but Kevin held up his hand. He said something quiet that the microphones didn't pick up, then kept moving. Kelly turned to the audience. Well, I guess Kevin Costner, everyone. Can't take a joke. She tried to laugh, but it came out forced. Awkward. The audience didn't laugh with her. A few people actually booed. The host of the show. Kelly's face went pale. Hey, now, come on. He was being ridiculous. But the audience wasn't having it. More boos. Someone yelled, "You were rude." Another voice called out, "Let him talk." Kelly looked at the cameras. We're going to take a quick break when we come back. But her voice trailed off. She didn't know what to say. How could she? Her guest had just walked off her show in front of everyone. Backstage, Kevin was already heading for the exit. Staff members watched him pass. Some looked sympathetic. One woman, maybe a producer, said, "I'm so sorry, that was." But Kevin just nodded, not stopping. Back in the studio, Kelly sat back down in her chair. The cameras were still rolling. She looked at her notes, then at the audience, then back at her notes. So, she started, then stopped. Someone from the crew yelled, "Cut," and the cameras finally stopped. But the damage was done. Everyone in that audience had seen it. The crew had seen it. And Kevin Costner had made his point in the clearest way possible. He didn't need to yell. He didn't need to cause a scene. He just needed to stand up and walk away from someone who didn't deserve his time. Kelly sat there in her chair, under those bright lights, with an audience that had turned against her. She had started the interview with all the power. The show was hers. The stage was hers. The audience was hers. But by trying to make Kevin look small, she had only made herself look smaller. Kevin was already in his car by the time Kelly tried to address the audience again. He sat in the back seat, looking out the window at the studio he was leaving behind. His phone started ringing. His publicist, probably, or his manager. Everyone would want to know what happened. Everyone would want to do damage control. But Kevin didn't feel like he needed to control anything. He had controlled the only thing that mattered. His dignity, his self-respect, his refusal to be treated poorly just because someone had a platform. Inside the studio, Kelly was trying to continue the show. They brought out her next guest, some actor promoting a comedy film, but the energy was wrong. The audience was cold. People were whispering to each other, looking at their phones, probably already posting about what they had just witnessed. The next guest sat down, smiling nervously. He had clearly been told what happened. Kelly tried to start the interview, asking about his new movie, but her heart wasn't in it. Her voice sounded different, uncertain. The confidence from earlier was gone. "So, your new film is a comedy," she said. "Yeah," the actor said carefully. "It's about a family who—" "That's great," Kelly interrupted, but this time it felt different, defensive. "Comedy is important. Making people laugh. That's what we do here. We have fun. Some people just don't understand that." The actor looked uncomfortable. The audience stayed quiet. This was not how talk shows were supposed to go. This was not the fun, upbeat environment people expected. Kelly pushed through the rest of the show, but it was painful to watch. Every joke fell flat. Every transition felt forced. The audience clapped when they were supposed to, but it was polite applause, obligatory applause, not the genuine enthusiasm from before. Kevin, meanwhile, was halfway home. He wasn't angry anymore, just tired. Tired of playing the game, tired of pretending that being treated poorly was somehow part of the job. He had been in this industry long enough to know that you don't have to accept disrespect, no matter who it comes from. His phone buzzed again, a text from a friend who had been watching the show. "Good for you, man. She crossed the line." Another text from a colleague. "Just saw what happened. You handled that with class." And another from his daughter. "Dad, everyone is talking about it. I'm proud of you." Kevin smiled at that last one. That was the only opinion that really mattered. Not the headlines that would come tomorrow, not the think pieces about celebrity behavior or talk show drama, just knowing that he had stood up for himself when it mattered. Back at the studio, the show finally ended. Kelly sat in her dressing room, staring at herself in the mirror. Her makeup was still perfect. Her hair was still styled. But something felt off. Something felt wrong. A producer knocked on the door. "Kelly, we need to talk about." "Not now," Kelly said. "Just not now." But there would have to be a now, eventually. There would have to be a conversation about what happened, about why it happened, about how to move forward. Because what had played out on that stage wasn't just an awkward interview. It was a moment where someone with power forgot that power comes with responsibility. Where someone with a platform forgot that platforms can be used to lift people up or tear them down. Kevin Costner had chosen to walk away rather than be torn down. And in doing so, he had shown everyone watching what real strength looks like. Not the strength to throw insults or make cutting remarks, but the strength to say, "This isn't okay," and mean it. The strength to value yourself enough to remove yourself from a toxic situation, even when cameras are rolling and audiences are watching. The studio lights dimmed as the crew packed up for the day. The audience had filed out, still buzzing with conversation about what they had witnessed. The set that had seemed so bright and cheerful hours earlier now felt empty, cold, a stage where something had broken that couldn't be easily fixed. Kelly finally left her dressing room. The hallways were quiet now. Most people had gone home. She walked past photos on the wall, pictures of her with guests, smiling, laughing, moments of joy captured and frozen in time. She stopped in front of one. A picture from her first week of the show. She looked so excited in it, so grateful for the opportunity, so determined to make it work. When had that changed? When had the excitement turned into something else? When had making good television become more important than treating people well? She couldn't pinpoint the exact moment. It had been gradual, a slow shift from wanting to connect with guests to wanting to create moments that would trend online, from wanting to have conversations to wanting to have content. But standing there in that empty hallway, looking at a version of herself that seemed so far away, Kelly realized something. In trying to create a moment, she had created the wrong kind of moment. In trying to be memorable, she had been memorable for all the wrong reasons. And in trying to take down someone she saw as an easy target, she had only taken herself down. Kevin was home now. He poured himself a drink and sat on his porch. The sun was setting, painting the sky in oranges and pinks. Beautiful, peaceful, exactly what he needed after the chaos of the day. He thought about the interview, about the questions Kelly had asked, about the moment he decided he had had enough. He didn't regret it, not for a second, because at the end of the day, you have to be able to look at yourself in the mirror. You have to be able to sleep at night knowing you stood up for what was right, and no amount of publicity or exposure or career advancement is worth compromising that. His phone buzzed again. More messages, more calls, more people wanting to know his side of the story. But Kevin didn't feel the need to explain himself. His actions had spoken clearly enough. Anyone who watched that interview would understand exactly what happened and why he left. He didn't need to justify his decision to anyone. Kelly sat in her car in the studio parking lot. She had been sitting there for 20 minutes, unable to make herself drive home. Her phone was exploding with notifications. Her team was in crisis mode. Everyone wanted to know how to spin this, how to control the narrative, how to make her look better and Kevin look worse. But deep down, Kelly knew the truth. There was no spinning this. There was no narrative that would make what happened okay. She had been cruel. She had been dismissive. She had treated a respected actor like he was beneath her, and he had responded with dignity while she had responded with more cruelty. That was the story. That was the truth. And no amount of public relations magic could change it. She finally started her car and drove home. The streets were busy with evening traffic, people going about their lives, having no idea what had happened in that studio today, no idea that a moment of television history had just been made. Not the good kind, the cautionary kind. The kind that would be talked about for years as an example of how not to conduct an interview. Kevin finished his drink and went inside. Tomorrow would bring more attention, more questions, more scrutiny, but tonight he was at peace. He had done what needed to be done. He had drawn a line and refused to let anyone cross it. That was enough. That had to be enough. In her home, Kelly sat on her couch. The house was quiet, too quiet. She turned on the television, flipping through channels mindlessly. Every station seemed to be showing entertainment news. She knew it was only a matter of time before her face appeared on those screens, before the clip of Kevin walking off went viral, before everyone had an opinion about what happened. She thought about calling him, apologizing, trying to make it right. But what would she even say? Sorry I insulted your career and brought up your personal life and then acted like you were the problem? Some things couldn't be fixed with a simple apology. Some bridges, once burned, couldn't be rebuilt. The worst part was that she knew better. She had been in entertainment long enough to know how to treat people. She had been on the other side of interviews before, back when she was promoting albums and tours. She knew what it felt like to be asked uncomfortable questions, to be put on the spot, to feel like the interviewer was more interested in making headlines than making conversation. So why had she done it? Why had she treated Kevin that way? Pride, maybe, or insecurity. Or the pressure to be edgy and controversial in a media landscape that rewarded conflict over kindness. Whatever the reason, it didn't matter now. The damage was done. The moment was over, and all that was left was the aftermath. Kevin lay in bed that night, exhausted but unable to sleep. His mind kept replaying the interview, not with regret, but with a strange sense of clarity. He had spent his entire career trying to be professional, trying to be gracious, trying to give good interviews and promote his work and play the game the way you're supposed to play it. But at what cost? How many times had he sat through uncomfortable questions and just smiled through it? How many times had he let interviewers take shots at him because that's what you do when you're promoting something? How many times had he prioritized being agreeable over being authentic? Today had been different. Today he had chosen authenticity, and while it might have consequences for his career, at least he could live with himself. At least he hadn't sacrificed his dignity on the altar of publicity. That was worth something. That was worth everything, actually. The next morning, Kelly woke up to a phone that wouldn't stop ringing. Her publicist, her producer, her manager, the network executives. Everyone had the same message. The clip was everywhere. Social media was exploding, and the vast majority of people were on Kevin's side. You need to make a statement, her publicist said. Something that shows remorse. Something that takes responsibility. I know, Kelly said quietly. I know. But knowing you need to apologize and actually doing it are two different things, especially when your pride is wounded. especially when part of you still wants to believe you were in the right, even when every piece of evidence says otherwise. Kevin woke up to a different kind of phone call, offers of support from colleagues, invitations to appear on other shows to tell his side, opportunities to capitalize on the moment, but he declined them all. He wasn't interested in turning this into a bigger spectacle. He wasn't interested in revenge or vindication. He had made his point. That was enough. Days would pass, then weeks. The story would eventually fade from the headlines, replaced by the next controversy, the next scandal, the next viral moment. But for everyone who was in that studio that day, for everyone who watched it happen, the memory would remain. The memory of a moment when someone said enough and meant it. When someone chose self-respect over celebrity. When someone reminded us all that being famous doesn't mean you have to accept being treated poorly. Kelly would eventually make her statement. She would apologize, though many would say it came too late and felt too calculated. She would try to move forward with her show, but the audience would be different. More cautious, less trusting. The easy rapport she once had with viewers would be strained, and rebuilding it would take time. Maybe more time than her show would last. Kevin would go back to work on his projects, the westerns he loved, the stories that mattered to him, and people would watch them differently now. Not just as entertainment, but as the work of someone who had shown integrity when it counted. Someone who had proven that you can be successful without sacrificing your values. Someone who had reminded us all that sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is simply walk away.